Yeah, we're going to talk about author platform tonight. And I don't know if the comments made it at the top of the video, so we'll find that out too. This is a first official video, Facebook Live in the group. Hi, Heather. Hi, Michelle. All right. Yay, we've got people watching. So welcome. Let's jump right in, because if you're on the replay, you want to hurry up and get to the good stuff. So I wanted to share with you two books that I will be that I've been looking through, that I love, and that I'm going to be talking from. Hi, Karina. Hi, Michelle. So the first one is Your First 1,000 Copies by Tim Grahl. And Tim Grahl has worked with some best-selling authors, New York Times best-selling authors, and he's got a good program for building an author platform and marketing your books. And I highly recommend his book. Lots of good stuff. Doesn't take a long time to read. It is 141 pages. I don't have my reading glasses on. And if you've watched my videos on YouTube, you know what this means. Print on demand. So this is a print on demand book with his, he's not self-published. He's with a small publisher called StoryGrid. So they're a small publisher, an indie publisher. Hi, Corey. Hi, Damaris. Hi, Corinne. All right. So everybody's here. All right. The other book that I'm referring to is called The Business of Being a Writer by Jane Friedman. Jane Friedman used to be the editor of Writer's Digest, which is a magazine that has been around for a very long time and does a lot of good books. Any books published by Writer's Digest on writing are excellent. Hi, Krista. Hey, Damaris. So Jane Friedman has been around for a while, and she's really into the details of the business side of writing and publishing, and she knows a lot about it. So we're going to jump right in. I have my notes here on my little post-it on author platform. Feel free to put questions in the comments, and I will answer them. But basically, hi, Debbie. Hey. So a good way to think about what is an author platform is, and why does it matter, all right? So if you meet someone and you're trying to figure out how much money they make, right? You don't come out and say, hey, how much money do you make, right? You look at how they're dressed, you look at what they drive, you ask questions about, you know, what job do they do, where they live, what kind of house they live in, that kind of thing, right? So that's why publishers often want to know what an author's platform is, because they're trying to get a sense of how many resources does this author have to help us, promote the book, to market and sell the book. So that's really why they want to know what your author platform is. How can you help them? And just a reminder, if you are traditionally published, you as the author will still need to do some selling and marketing. So it doesn't matter which kind of publishing path you choose, traditional, self, or hybrid, you will be doing some or all of the marketing, okay? So traditional publishers, almost all of them now almost require that you have that an author have a platform. Now, in certain cases, they may not. So if you have an MFA from Iowa, whatever they're called, the Iowa Writers Workshop, if you have an MFA from a prestigious school, if you've been published in, a New York magazine, the New Yorker, that kind of stuff, you kind of can get away with not having a platform, but to get into those things takes a little bit of relationship building, and we're going to get into how that plays into your author platform. So author platform is more than just social media. When you think about building an author platform, okay, it's social media is part of your platform. Your website is part of your platform. And let's see, there's actually a number of things that I wrote down that are important parts of your platform. Anything that you've already published that has been published by a magazine or by another publisher, that becomes part of your author platform. And your relationships with people within either the publishing industry, or if you're like a science fiction writer, your relationship with other science fiction writers, if you're a memoir writer, any relationships you have that kind of affect that. So your membership in the literary community, that's part of your platform. So it's not just social media. However, Tim Grahl really focuses on social media and points out that we have opportunity now in a way we didn't before to build a platform online, and there's so many ways you can do it. So it's not just Facebook or not just Twitter. You can be building your platform on Instagram. You can build your platform through a podcast. You can build your platform on Reddit. Okay, there are so many different places now to build a platform. It does depend on your genre and what you like. So that's kind of some things to think of when you think about building a platform. One of the things that's important in building a platform is a lot of writers say, well, I just need to spend time writing. I don't need to worry about my platform. And we don't have that luxury anymore. You do need to worry about your platform even while you're writing. Because if you spend all your time writing and then you're like, okay, I'm done, now it's time to find a publisher, you don't have a platform, and then you have to take more time to build a platform. So the way you want to try to think about it is, how can I both build the platform and do the writing kind of simultaneously? And so you want to find a way to have the two feed each other. So your platform kind of helps with your writing and gives you ways to play with ideas, share a little bit about what you're either researching or writing about, or the theme of what you're writing about. And then at the same time that you're sharing that kind of stuff, you're getting a little bit of feedback from people, you're finding out what resonates, and that can help with your writing. So that's the kind of way to view building a platform and writing. And you want to start that as soon as you can, okay? I know it's hard, it's a big thing to do, especially if you're doing other things too, but it's the same way as building a business. It's one thing to be, okay, I'm going to build a business, but you also have to be doing marketing while you're building the business. So they kind of both go together. And that's how publishing a book, writing and publishing a book, you kind of need the platform building to happen at the same time. So the challenge, but the advice, is that you need to have it be pretty easy and short little things that you do. So once you have this steep learning curve of Canva or whatever technology on whatever platform you're using. Hi, Joan. Yes, I did tell you this. So we're going to expand a little bit more on that conversation too, Joan. So once you have the place that you're going to be doing your platform building, then you want it to be something you can do relatively easily multiple times a week. Not every day. And yes, consistency is important, but you don't force it. So it needs to be something that kind of can be part of your flow of your day or your week. And again, I know some people are like, I only want to post once a week. It kind of depends on the platform and what community that you're building your social media presence on. So that's going to affect what you're doing. But think of it as little things you can share. A quote that you wrote, or hey, I'm working on this idea, or hey, I read this interesting thing about dogs the other day, if your book is about dogs, say. So you can give away more chunks of your book. Actually, Jane Friedman gives the example, and I don't remember who asked this question in the beginning of Made to Do This in that program, but somebody said, can I read my chapters or my stories on my podcast and then publish the book? And yes, you can. Because there was a science fiction guy, and that's what he was doing. Now, a science fiction novel is usually quite long, so he had a lot of chapters, and he would read as he wrote on his podcast, and then eventually he got picked up by a traditional publisher. So building a platform can be done in any way that fits and works within your comfort zone. All right. One of the things that Tim Grahl mentions is he gives in his book, he gives the example, he's got a woman writer who's a nonfiction, like a business writer, and then he has a science fiction author. And the science fiction author, he also starts a podcast with a professor talking about physics, because he's into science fiction, and they talk about science fiction. Is it really true? Kind of like a Neil deGrasse Tyson, is that his name? Kind of conversation about science fiction instead of space. Yes. So it's simultaneous and not linear, exactly. If you wait till after you've written the book, Yes, it's a massive undertaking. So trying to do them at the same time. And it's a little harder for different genres. So if you're doing a business book or a science book even, a book on health, obviously you can be talking about those topics and those can become your book, but they're also your platform, right? So like I follow the holistic psychotherapist on Instagram. She posts a lot of quotes and she posts a lot of little like list kind of things, but she's now got a book that's about to come out, and it's obviously on the same kind of topics. So that's easy to see. It's a little harder with fiction, but there's things you can do. You can talk about, so like I'm writing a novel that takes place in the late 60s, early 70s, and I am trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to start building my platform for the novel? So I'm going to talk about stuff from the 60s and 70s because I want to make sure that those current events, the book isn't about the current events, but they're part of the setting of the book. And then my characters, and I can show a little bit about, I mean, if I really wanted, I could be like, well, I'm trying to pick character names, and I like these names, and I can define the character, and I can share that process with people. And over time, they'll start to follow and kind of follow the process. But in fiction, you don't want to give away the plot. Like, you don't want to share the plot twists and all that stuff. So in fiction, Pinterest is a good place for a lot of like historical fiction or romance, because people can build boards that do the setting. They can have a setting board. They can have a board about heroines. And then they can have a board about heroes, and they can say, okay, my hero looks like these people, or so you can do character boards, you can do setting, you can do time. So on Pinterest is good for visuals and making like mood boards for your book. Or if you're really into fantasy, you can see, if you go on to Pinterest and you look up fantasy or different genres, you will see some of that happening. Or pick your favorite, fantasy author and go to their Pinterest, and you'll see all these different kinds of boards that they've been doing. So that's another kind of idea. The key, though, is to pick what you like and what you're comfortable with, because if you have to force it, you're not going to do it, and then it's not going to happen. So you want to keep doing it that way. Let's see, what else do we have? So it needs to be easy, small tasks that you can do multiple times a week. And then again, like I said, try to integrate it with your writing. Another example that we're all probably familiar with is poets on Instagram who share their poetry, and then they eventually, they get a traditional publisher comes along and says, hey, I want to publish your poetry. One thing that I wasn't seeing until recently, I was in I did a workshop with someone who was talking about Instagram, and she pointed out that, like, I was picturing Instagram as my, like, kind of almost like a website. Like, oh, I'm putting all my poems on here, and they're all going to live in this huge database on Instagram. That's not really true. After, 50 to 100 posts, how are you going to go back? There's not a search function for your Instagram. You're not going to go back and see what your original poems were, because she was saying you can repost things and people won't know because they probably didn't see it the first time. So your Instagram or your Facebook or your Twitter, while there's technology to go back and find the whole thing, your average reader's not going to do that. So in one way that's good, because then you're like, oh, it kind of comes and goes. It's more ephemeral than, say, a website would be, right? So you are putting stuff there, but just because it's there in that way, or again on a podcast, doesn't mean a publisher or you yourself can't later self-publish it or be traditionally published with the same content. So I've mentioned before, I think on a live, there's an Instagram account called A Small Fiction, and they do like little 5 to 6 line stories, and it looks the same every time, and so now they have a book that's just a huge collection of their stories, and then that's what a lot of other poets have done as well. So that's part of Author Platform. The other thing is that when you think about your author platform, we're talking real heavy about social media right now, but it's not just that. It's also relationships that you build with your readers or with other authors. So getting to know other authors in your genre, other authors about your topic, other authors that are business writers that are kind of in the same stage of their career as you are, or brand new. That helps you make connections within your field. And then the people that follow them will discover you, and the people that eventually will follow you will discover them, and it starts to become this web. But it's very hard when you're at the very beginning, because you don't see how this is all going to interconnect, and you're like, how can I just get more connections? It's just a few people at a time and consistently putting out your work. One of the quotes that I actually read on my Instagram that Jane Friedman says is that when you're a new writer, okay, it's very hard to build a platform because you don't know who you are as a writer. So you're supposed to put out your work, but you don't have any work, right? Like I've got this novel. I'm supposed to build a platform around a novel. I don't have the novel yet. I have to write it. Okay, so there is a bit of a chicken and the egg kind of thing. So that's why what she calls literary citizenship activities, or meeting other people in the genre or the field that you're writing in, can kind of give you a little bit of a jump start. In the same way that being in Made to Do This or a business course or something like that kind of gives you a core jump of followers, but over time, the ones who aren't your real audience are going to kind of fall away, and so hopefully by then you'll start to kind of be putting work out there that people will start to resonate with. So I hope that makes sense. So let me know in the comments if that sounds like it doesn't make any sense. But to me, it kind of helps. Oh, and it also kind of takes the pressure off. So you're kind of finding your voice. If you don't already have, I know some of you guys already have things written and you know what your body of work is. It's just waiting for you to take the next step. But if you are still trying to figure out what your voice is and what your work is, that's the other good thing about social media, because when you only have 10 followers, you can test things out and it won't be the end of the world. Whereas when you have 10,000 followers and you test things out, you get a different reaction to it. Okay, but you can still do that. There's still people who do that and test things out all the time. What else did I want to cover by this? So the other thing that to know about your platform is that a traditional publisher is going to want, so by traditional publisher, I mean actually a big 5 traditional publishers, so one of the big, huge guys, they're going to want you to have a humongous platform, like, you know, a celebrity or someone like Rumi Kaur, or I'm sure I said her name wrong, Rupi, the poet. Anyway, so like an Instagram poet with however many, 30,000 followers or whatever they have. So the big 5 are going to want huge followings. But there are other traditional publishers who won't want such a huge following. So then you can be more down to, 10,000 followers or whatever some of the milestone limits are within the different social media platforms. And I'm sorry, I don't know the numbers that are kind of standard big numbers for the different platforms, but I'm sure we can Google that and find out. But the smaller the publishers, the university publishers that I've talked to a lot of you about and said university presses are great publishers to consider if you're wanting to be traditionally published. They're going to be more concerned about the quality of your writing. Your platform is still important, but not as important as a big 5. Yes, Rupi Kaur, thank you, Corey. I could see Homebody was the book I was envisioning. If you are going with a hybrid publisher, which I know some of you are interested in that, then again, your platform's important, but it doesn't have to be humongous. It just needs to be a nice, solid platform. If you are speaking, we used to go travel and speak, but if you're doing events online, that's part of your platform as well. I know there's some people that I had clarity calls with, and they have speaking careers, and that's part of their job. So that's kind of part of your platform. Anyway, there is that point. And then if you're going to self-publish, then you decide how big your platform is. But it's up to you. But it's going to be harder to promote your book if you don't have a platform. You don't just put it on Amazon and then it's going to sell like hotcakes. That happened in, I want to say 2005, 2003, 2004. People would put a book on Amazon and it would just sell, because no, there was hardly any books, and Amazon was promoting all their books, and so there were Amazon millionaires at that time. That's not how it works anymore. There's so much competition on Amazon now that just putting a book on Amazon is not, that's just the basic, and then there's stuff you need to do beyond that. So all right, more on author platform here. I want to look at my scribble here. Varies by publisher. Hard to do when you don't know. Oh, okay, so here's the trick I wanted to share with people who, so in Facebook, if you have a Facebook profile, your personal Facebook, and you're an author and you're like, why should I have a business Facebook page, right? Especially I'm a fiction author. What am I going to do with a business Facebook page? That doesn't make any sense. Or it's too much work to do your profile and your Facebook, and then you've got some other place that you want to be. So one of the things that you can do is you can have your personal Facebook page, but mark your posts that are part of your author persona as public. And guess who does this? Mark Zuckerberg. He does not have a business Facebook. He has his own personal Facebook, but then posts that he wants the public to be able to view, just anybody, he goes into his settings per post and changes those to public. And so you can do that. I actually had put something up on my personal page and somebody wanted to share it. And so I had to go into the post. You go up to the top at the 3 little dots, you click on that, and then you can change the privacy setting on that post and set it to public. And then people, your friends, can share it with other people and they will see it. So that's one type of way to do your Facebook page or your Facebook profile if you're a writer. And there's actually probably a lot of writers who do that. And so some little tip to consider. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to share with you guys right now about Author Platform. There is way more, but I just wanted to give you kind of a initial introduction to it. If you have any questions about author platforms per book or genre or whatever, put those in the comments below and I can answer them. But I'm trying to kind of catch everybody I know who's in the group and what they're writing. But I think really pretty much we covered everything. The hardest thing to build a platform for is Memoir, but I've really been thinking about it, and generally your memoir has a theme. So if your memoir is about family, then you can be sharing things about family, feel good things about family if you want, or if you're real into dramas and family secrets, you can share stories about family secrets on your Facebook and make those public or whatever. So another thing you can be doing for memoir, because a lot of websites like Medium and Next Avenue and I think BlogHer, there's a lot of websites out there that will take that you can guest blog for. And so if you could send people, you do a guest blog on the topic that's part of your memoir. I wouldn't take out exact word for word from your memoir for these outlets, but you would repurpose the contents. You would rewrite, you would have, if your thing is on family secrets, say, then you can do an article about family secrets that is talking about the dangers of family secrets or whatever, even though your memoir is about a family secret. So you see, you kind of want to tie it together. There was a book I read, it was a woman she lost 4 people in 1 year, like her husband, her sister, her mother, and her mother-in-law all passed away in 1 year. And so her book was a memoir about grief. And then when I went to her website, she had all these articles out there on the internet in different places, not telling the same thing that was in the memoir, but talking about grief and sharing little bits of the story. And so then she got people who were interested in grief, because that's who's going to read a book about a memoir on grief. Corey asks, will university presses only publish academic writers or academic type writing? No. University presses will publish non-academic books, and they do tend to prefer if the author is in their state. So but that's not like they're not going to say, no, we won't publish you if you're not in Nebraska, say for Nebraska University Press. They will publish. What you want to do is go to their website and look and see what kinds of books they've published that are not academic. And I wish that I could give you an example. Well, actually, I do have an example. So this is not an academic book, The Business of Being a Writer. It's actually a book about writing, okay? And it is published by Chicago, University of Chicago Press. Wait, University Press of Chicago. Let me make sure I get the words right for the name of the publisher. So, yeah, the University of Chicago Press. So this is not academic. It's what we would call a trade book because it's written for the general public to read, and it's published by a university press. I worked for a university press called Island Press, which publishes environmental books, and they do publish a lot of scholarly books for forest planners and urban planners and biological, I can't remember all the different types of groups that we would publish books for, but they also published a memoir of a scientist who had gone to South America and taken mushrooms. This was in the 90s. And it was his memoir, and he was, so they did memoirs of scientists. They did E.O. Wilson's memoir. So there were other books that they did that were in the same vein about environmental science, but they were trade publishing, or they were trade books, and they were sold to bookstores, not for use in college classrooms. So that's what I love about university presses is that's kind of this little known secret. Yes, Corey. So I was actually speaking with, and I don't know if she's in the group, but someone who was doing books on food and art. And I went online and found, and I knew there's all these museums who have publishing agreements and partnerships with publishing companies or houses like university presses, and they'll do art books. And so there's this whole field of publishers that do art books that are not academic. Some are academic, some are not. So that's really fun to know. There are a lot of publishers out there like that. Let's see. I think that's everything that I have tonight on Author Platform. And as the weeks go on, we'll see if there's more questions about that. But feel free to ask any other questions in the comments here, or just post a question in the group. And yes, you have to get admin approval for now, but generally I try to get those done as soon as I see them. So it may take an hour or 2 or 3. So, Krista, is the proposal process for university presses similar to non? Yes, it is. Some do accept proposals from agents, but they don't all require that. And you can actually, I think everybody I had a clarity call with, I sent them a university press, maybe not everybody, but most of them, that had their submission guidelines online. So what you want to do is you go to, let's say if you want to go to the University of Chicago Press, which is quite a large one, you would go there, you would just put submission guidelines, University of Chicago Press, and then you go on and they will give you their submission guidelines. And it will be a book proposal that you'll need to do, like we posted earlier in the group. So you'll have, it's a 15 to 50 page document, and it asks, for certain, each press has their own kind of submission guideline, but they're all pretty much the same. So they're going to want to know a synopsis of your book, summary of it. They're going to want some chapters. There's a lot of marketing questions they're going to ask and want you to know what are other books that are like this book out there, and how is your book different, that kind of thing. So we'll get more into the details of book proposals, but you can find them online at the press that you are targeting. And look at all of the presses. Your first one, it's just like applying for college. You're not going to get the first one you apply to, unfortunately. And maybe you will. Maybe lightning will strike, and you will. But you want to be prepared to submit your proposals to more than one publishing house. So, okay. So, any more questions? I'm going to give you just a couple more minutes. Let's see, how long did we go? 30 minutes. That's good. I wanted to be right at 30 minutes because I know it's hard to watch a replay that's too long. So, thank you guys for listening and watching, and thank you for the great questions. And again, add more questions in the group or in the comments, and I will see you again. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Krista, Michelle, Heather, everybody. Bye.